I can't say it. Oh.
Yes, you okay. All right. So, like I said, today we'll be starting from the shape tool. So, what are the shape tools? The shape tools are kind of like the building blocks of every design that you do on Figma. They are like the foundation. They are like things that you bring together to give you different designs, different items, different objects, different layers on your Figma design. So, we kind of have like a different shape tools. Your shape tool is located right after the frame tool or the toolbar at the top here. So when you click on this drop down, you'll be able to like access all other tools that are available. We have the rectangle tool, we have the line tool, we have the arrow tool, we have the ellipse tool, we have the polygon tool, we have the star tool, and we have this one for just placing image directly on your Figma screen, on your canvas. So these shapes, they come in different dimensions. They have different depths, and at the same time you can apply different properties to them. There are some shapes that you can apply specific properties to that you cannot apply to others. So take for example now, say our ellipse, which is like our circle. So you have a circle that looks like this. Let me just make this equal 200 200 equal width and height. So it is very, very possible for you to like, okay, before I go into that, our shapes, they have what is known as nodes for transforming the shapes, and at the same time these nodes can actually be used in editing the object into a different shape entirely. So if you come to edit, you see this ellipse now has 4 nodes. You can actually pick each of these nodes and adjust it to give you something different. You know, like from an ellipse, now you are moving to something that looks like a bean, and if you adjust it properly, it might be looking like a moon or a kidney or something else. So that's for the edit tool. So if you are using the edit tool on your rectangle tool, you can actually like shape this thing to be something else. Can you imagine you have something that looks like a boomerang now? All right. So another thing that I would like to make sure that I would like to mention is that concerning the nodes of an object, you see that by default each of these objects has 4 nodes, and you can pick on each of these nodes to scale this thing up and low or in any dimension. But if you like want to scale it dimensionally, like as the height is increased, so as the height is increasing, so should the width. You'll have to constrain the proportions. So by constraining the proportion, the height will be increasing relatively to the width. Like as you are increasing the height, so will your width be also increasing. So let's say as this thing is I've clicked and activated the constraint proportions now. Okay, before I do that, let me set it to a square of 300 by 300. So now I'm adding a constraint to the proportion. Let me bring this one down a little bit. Adding a constraint to this thing. So by the time I increase, oh sorry, not that one. Make sure you select your object too before applying a particular property, or else it will just be like working on something else. So by the time I select this and I change this thing to 500 here, automatically the width will be changed to 500 even without me modifying it. But without this constraint proportion, if I change this thing to 400, I will have to come back and modify this one manually to 400. So probably you want to work with something responsive, you can use that constraint proportions to like, adjust your width as you're increasing the height too. So yeah, then for this our circle, this circle has a very special node here. Let me increase it to make it bigger. So yeah, it has a very special, oh, sorry, that's my pen tool. B. It has this very special tool that makes it like this special node that aside from the 4 nodes that are surrounding it, this node here that you can use to like form an arc. Like take for example, you just cut out a particular segment, you sweep it out. So instead of you like, okay, now this is a semicircle. If paraventure I want to like get the shape of a semicircle, I can probably go and use my pen tool to draw the semicircle, make sure that all the curves and shapes are neat and cool and stuff. Or I can as well go through the process of maybe creating a circle first, then creating another rectangle, setting my rectangle to be color white. And after setting my rectangle to be color white, I'll probably select the tool Then there is this grouping tool that we can actually use here. We'll still talk about that one later. So let me just look at subtract. So before I will be able to get something that looks like a semicircle here. So meanwhile, you see the process and the stress that was involved in making this semicircle. Whereas I can just like make my circle to, let me remove this one. Yeah, this was what I was having initially. Just look at my circle tool and pick up my arc and just, give it a 50% sweep and have my semicircle. You see all the stress that was involved in creating something that looks like this just because I wanted to create it from scratch because I do not know of this particular feature. So yeah, different shapes can actually like have different have specific features that are pertaining to them alone. So like I made mention of earlier, these are our shapes. They act as the building block of almost a lot of designs that you see and interact with on your web applications and websites and on all your softwares on day-to-day basis. So take for example our hold on. Uh, our rectangle can actually be like the building block of a particular button that comes in something like that looks like this, and you see something like this for a button, or something that holds your profile picture like an avatar for profile picture. So you have a circle like this, and probably something that a profile picture will be placed inside, probably going to be filled with a profile picture. Go to the field, then come to the image. Okay, I'll still talk about the field a little bit. Then I think that will be when I'll be talking about the gradients, pictures. Okay, so like a user avatar like this, or a button like this, like a button shape like this, etc., etc. Like, or also something another component that comes to my mind is like a rating design, like something you want to use to like rate something. Take for example now, say you buy something on Jumia and they say you rate the person that sells it, or you order for a boat ride and at the end of the ride, at the end of the trip, they're expected to like rate your driver. So these shapes like these stars can actually be used to like do the rating system. So something like this. All right, then you can probably have them give them different shapes and colors and everything. So probably this one is going to be yellowish. Then this one to the same yellow. This one to something like that. Like just for it not to be too blank. Yeah. So like you can just see that these shapes are like the building blocks of our design. We use it in different to design different components, different user interface, different layers. Like they are like the foundation of everything you do on your design. So the same way this one has its own node, each of this what's it called, each of these objects also has their nodes, and you can adjust it, you can modify it. So going down to the properties and the attributes that you can assign to these shapes. So there is the possibility that this your circle will have some couple of shapes that this rectangle will not have. So take for example now, border radius, or should I say corner radius. Say this our rectangle here, you can see that the edges, like the vertices rather, they are kind of pointed, they are not smooth. So you can actually like apply something that is known as corner radius, let's say 20, to this thing. And instead of having a pointed vertices, you have a smooth and curved, like curvish, like a bezier curve edge. So you cannot do this kind of thing to a circle because all the edges are kind of like smooth, like it has a curve already. So you cannot apply a corner radius to a circle. It's not possible. So in the same vein, there are take for example our star polygon shape. By the time you click on that, you see there's this particular tool here that determines the number of a point that your shape that your star has. You cannot expect this kind of attribute on a rectangle. Neither can you see this kind of attribute on a circle or your ellipse. So this one is 5. Say already I want to make it 8. You will see that the dimension has changed. It's no longer 5 pointed star. So then the ratio in which these stars are evenly distributed among themselves. This is what we have here. So let me just take you in the walkthrough through the properties on the right hand side, which is this panel here. So at the top here we have the tools used for alignment and distribution. I've made mention of this before, and we might still go in depth into them later on. So they are used to like position your layers, your shapes to what's it called, to a certain position in the frame. So if I'm saying align left, it's going to try and put this frame to the left of the frame in which it is present. So you see, because this rectangle is inside the tablet screen frame, it's positioning it to the left of the frame. Say for example, I create another frame now that is going to be inside what is it called? Let me frame. Say I want to put this frame inside my tablet screen, bring it to the center of the page, give it a background color to make it visible. Yeah, something like that. No, that's my frame. Now let me make it wide a little bit. Let me put this one inside this frame. So this rectangle now is inside frame one. Frame one is now inside tablet. So by so doing, I can take my frame one, I can just select my frame one and align it to the center. This horizontal center is to the center of the, what's it called? Let me give it vertical center too, so that you go down a little bit. Yeah. Let me before I do that, let me move this then my frame to the center. All right. So now this my button now, even if it is not properly like positioned before, I can now use this alignment and distribution to position it to the frame in which it is located. So let's say I want it at the left, I choose left. You see it is positioned to the left of the frame. If I want it to the center, come to the center, it's in the center. If I want it to the right, comes to the right. If I want it aligned with like centered vertically, it is centered vertically. If I want it at the bottom, it goes to the bottom. And if I want it to be like perfectly in the center, that's going to be vertical center and horizontal center. So I will use vertical center and horizontal center. So mind you, all these operations also have their own hotkeys, or should I say shortcuts. But you can only like be familiar with them as you practice with this thing, as you make use of this tool every now and then. Take for example, now if you want to align something to the right, by the time you to the left, by the time you over on this left align, you will see the shortcuts coming up, align left. So that means if I press Alt A on my keyboard, Alt A, I will see this thing moving to the left hand side. So if I do, I think Alt A should be to the, Alt A should be center. Yeah. So that's that about alignment and distribution. Then for the properties, this X is the position on the X-axis, and by X-axis that's like the horizontal axis. It can actually be positive or negative, and by the time it's going to negative, that means it is going out of the layer. So like this is out of the frame rather. See, this 55, by the time I say minus 55, so that means this particular layer is going out of the frame. So, and you know, like with what I explained yesterday about frames, by the time it's the particular the layer or object is going out of the frame, it cuts out the bleeding the portion, it crops it out. So then the width for the size of that's the breadth, how wide it is. Then the height is for how tall it is. Then we have this angle of rotation. So aside from using this value here for rotation, I think you can actually press Control on your keyboard, then click and rotate. So with your mouse. So, but nevertheless, if you are finding it difficult to do that, just use this rotation properties here. And this one for border, for corner radius. And this corner radius, you can set independent values for each of the corners. Let me restore the value to 0. So every corner is now sharp and pointed. Say I want to pick some couple of corners. Let me put this one as 20 and put the first one as 20. No, let me just use the second one instead. All right, you can see that the lower left corner and the upper right corner are the only part that has this corner radius. So the individual corner radius was set for this particular object, and as you can see, it is mixed. So the corner radius is starting from the top left to the top right to the bottom right, and finally at the bottom left corner radius. Then this one is for constraint. This one is for making it easy to develop things in a responsive manner. So take for example, now you want this particular shape, this particular rectangle shape that we've been working with, to scale according to the frame that in which we've been putting it. You can probably change this one to scale, change this one to scale. So by the time you click on this frame and you try to increase it both in the width or the height, it will also increase the width of the height of the particular layer, the particular shape or object that is inside it. So that's that about constraint. You can actually use a fixed position for the scrolling. Then we have layers, we have fields. Okay, this our layer is how you kind of blend things together. Say color bond is applying some sort of filter on all the objects that are within what's it called, within the frame. So your layer is how you kind of blend stuff together, apply different effects through layering. Then we have fill. This fill is for applying colors, background colors to be precise, when it is about shapes. So there are several colors that you can just come here to like pick a particular point on this I don't know if I should call it color swatch. Then you want to a particular color that is not in the present swatch that you are picking, you can just like come to this slider and slide from the left to the right so you get to the particular color instance that you need. And probably you want to apply a little bit of transparency, you can bring it down or leave it as at 100%. So this one is for the color code. You can switch between hexadecimal color code to RGB color code to CSS properties. Like you want to write here, you want to bring in your CSS code and probably display some technical know-how. Then the HSL, I think that would be EU light and something else. So anyways, that's that about fields. So and as you can actually assign multiple fields, like more than, okay, sorry. I think I've removed that field. All right, so you can assign multiple fields by clicking on this plus icon. You see I have now like 5 different fields and everything. So if you want to like use other fields and just to blend stuff up, to mash things together, to tweak things around, to play around with things, you can also you can go ahead and do that as well. Then we also have the stroke. The stroke is for applying an outline to your shape. So when you come to stroke and you click on stroke, initially by default when you create an object, there is no stroke that will be there. So but when you click on stroke, you will see it will be created with a stroke of 1 px, 1 pixel, one default of 1. I think I can do 1 px. Okay, no, I can just input the value. So let's say from 1, I want to make it 5. You will see that the thickness and the, should I say the density, let me just say the thickness of the border increased. So and you can also come to change the color of the border as well, of the stroke. So to whatever color you want to use and everything, and you just have something good and nice. So that's that about stroke and colors. So we'll be discussing more about stroke and colors when we talk about our gradients. So but I think basically that's that about our shapes. Then coming down to our text tool. Text tool are what you use to like bring text onto your canvas, just as the name sounds. So it is this our T at the toolbox here. You can press letter T on your keyboard. So 2 ways in which you can actually like create text with your text tool. Either by just clicking on a particular place and start typing ASAP. You will see the appearance, then you can start adding some properties. Or you can click your text tool, come to T, then draw the text box in which you want to like write and start writing stuff and everything and everything and everything and everything and everything and everything and everything. Okay, yeah. So the difference between drawing out a particular text box and just clicking somewhere and start typing automatically is the fact that this one by default it has what do they call this thing? Auto width. Yeah, that's it. It like the width will just keep on adjusting automatically. But because this one you drill it, the width is fixed, but the height is now auto height. So by default, it should just like be trying to shape the content of what you are typing to be as per the height of what you are typing. So this one, if I keep on typing to you, like unless I press enter or like manually adjust the width or height of this particular text box, it will just keep on increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. So, but for this one, it is the height that is adjusted automatically. So, but we can all modify those properties and characteristics. Let's look at our design panel for this our text box. So by the time you select your text box and it is selected like this, it has all these basic properties of the alignment and distribution or whatever position you want it to like be. Then we also have the value for its x and y axis, then the rotation, then the constraints too, then the text properties. You can come here to change the font. You can set whether it is regular, bold, or whatever. There are a lot of fonts that are available here. And in case you want to like try out new font, I think all Google fonts are present here. So you can actually go to fonts.google.com and just look at the list of available fonts, then select the one you want to play around with, then just come and get the name on Figma. So let's say, okay, this is Roboto. Now Roboto is the default font on Figma, but let's say I want to use this Neanderthal. I think it should be there. Let me check. So yeah, you can also you can either use this drop down and scroll through the list of available fonts, or just click here and type the name of the font. Okay, that neon blah 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 is not there. Let me just look at some other glyphs that you can probably change to something common. Okay, there is open sans here, so there should be open sans here. To open sans is pretty common. Yeah, open sans. Yeah, that's it. So the font family is now open sans. I can choose this to be like, okay, let's do extra bold. You see, it's now bolder. So then this one is the font size. So instead of 12, let's say I want to make it 18. So you see it's bigger now. Then there are so many other properties that you can apply to this thing. Let me reduce it. So let me just do. So there are so many other attributes and what's it called? Position attribute and properties that you can apply to your text character. So for this you can adjust your line spacing, your line height. Line spacing is character spacing rather, which is also letter spacing here. It is the space between each of the letters in your text box. So you by default it is in percentage, but if you want to work with probably specific values, you can change it to pixel by, let's say this is 0%, let's say 5px. So automatically it is like identifying it in pixel values, not in percentage. And if you want to like leave it as percentage, you can also leave it there as percentage. Then the line height is auto. You can modify that one too and put any value that you want to add. Line height is the difference between from one line to the other. Say I want to add all right, this is another text below the initial one. So I can just come here, line height is auto. Let me make this 150. And then, sorry. All right, so the height between each of those characters, you see there is now enough space between each of those characters. It has given it sufficient space. So that's that about that. Then for the fixed width and fixed height that I was talking about, these three icons here are what you can use to change those ones. This one is for auto width. Then the next one is auto height. Then we have a fixed size for both the width and the height. So then text align, whether you want your text to be centered, to be left, or to be justified. Okay, I think we have left, right, and center here. So this is text center, this is text right, text left, text center. So that is that about that. Then you can also come to make some fill and apply some colors to your text too. By default, it comes with black. You can change it to anything you want, depending on what you are designing and how you are designing it. And you can just have a go at that and tweak things to your satisfaction. So, all right, that is that about text tool, about the text tool. So I think I should be moving forward to the gradient. Let me quickly cover something on the gradient before I call it a day, because time is no longer on our side anymore. So yeah, what else do I want to talk about? Yeah, before I go to gradients, you can actually use your local font on your your Figma application. If peradventure you are using this on the web interface, like you are using the web browser to access your Figma design, you will need what is known as a font helper. Yeah, you need a font helper, which is a desktop application that you are going to download and install to help you bring your local font and make it accessible on the Figma app. But if you are working or collaborating with others, just make sure that this font you are sharing it with your teammate as well, because since it's a local font, it is particular to you, and for them to be able to access it, they will have to have it on their machine as well. So yeah, that's that about text tool. So let's just go over to gradient and see what's what with gradient. Let me just leave this one here and come back to this my ellipse, or should I say my circle. All right, so this is my circle. Gradients, they are like the beautiful ways in which you can apply creativity in coloring. So gradient is like, okay, you want something like, you just want to like two things, and you want to bring in the how will I put it, you just want to play around with colors a little bit, but you don't want to be too far off from what you are doing. And also it's a wonderful way to design stuff. So gradient is a tool that helps you, like, let me just use the word creativity in coloring. So there are different gradients available in Figma. We have the linear gradients, you have the radial gradients, you have the angular gradients. We also have the diamond gradient. So solid is just a plain color style, just like that. But when we have a linear gradient, our linear gradient applies this gradient in a straight line, like from one point to the other. So at the top here, you can see the color for the starting point, and the left, you see where my mouse is over, like this is the color for the starting point and the color for the end point. So let's say we want to play around with something greenish. Let me move this slider to the green side. Starting point should be like from a dark green to something that is lighter. I can actually leave it at this grayish white, or take it to, let me just something to a green that is lighter. So by default, it is going to be in a straight line like this, and it will have a very high transparency. The transparency is what makes it blend from the what's it called, from the original color to the last color, that's from the beginning to the end. So then also you can also add steps, like probably middle steps in between the two boundaries. So say for example, you already have these two stops at the top here. You can just put this one here to like add a different color. Let me just say, okay, let me come and put something bluish here. You can click another stop here to add something reddish or pinkish or something like that. So before you know it, you have like, oh, now this is wonderful, but this is still rubbish because I don't even know the correlation between all these colors. So nevertheless, you have something that is looking pleasing to the eyes. So in case you want to delete any of the previous stuff, you just have to just have to select them and press delete or backspace on your keyboard, then it is gone. Another thing you can do is that this particular line, this control line that you see on your screen, you can actually select it and move it around for you to determine where that linear gradient is going to come into play. You can reduce it, you can draw it further to increase the what's it called? So if you think or feel as if what you are doing is not smooth enough, you can use this control to manually adjust it. So that's that about that. What else can you do? Okay, you can come to adjust your transparency at the bottom here. But say for example, say if you are dealing with a color that you don't really know, but you want to pick from another shape or layer on the screen, on the artboard, and just use this color picker tool, this thing that looks like an eyedropper, select it, then come and over on your screen to like select the picture that you want. Although this is changing it to a solid picture, you can now go back to linear to adjust my linear what have you. So that's that about working with linear gradients. So then we also have radial gradients. So okay, one thing about linear gradients is that I've told you that it's just in a straight line. So but about radial gradients is starting from a particular point in the middle and extending outside to the circumference of your shape, or probably to the edges of your shape. Let me put it that way. Don't let me use circumference because we are dealing with circles. So you can see the way this thing is spreading from the circle to outside, like it's just spreading from innermost part to the outermost part. So yeah, that's how radial works. So then we also have the control options here for the radial, just like you do for for linear. So you can use this one to adjust and bring things around manually in case you just want to see, okay, let me do this and leave it like this. It's kind of looking like an eye. If I do this thing very well, it's be looking like the probably the eyeball of someone. Or should I say the umbra or penumbra? What's it called? Shadows in physics. There's something about that. Anyways, that's that about radial. All other properties of you selecting colors, of you adjusting your transparency and adding stops to this thing also exist for radial gradient as well. So then we also have angular gradient. The main difference, okay, angular gradients is like, should I say linear gradient? But the thing about angular gradient is that it tends to form a particular angle. So it spreads like in a clockwise direction pertaining to the angle in which it is working with. Let me remove this top in the middle here. All right. So if you, let me just put this thing in the middle very well. Yeah. So if you look at this particular angular gradient, you see that it is starting from the middle and it is kind of like spreading in a clockwise direction to all other parts, and it's just like, from the middle and rolling out like that. That's that about angular gradient. So you, in just like the way we did for linear gradient and radial gradient, you can also add different stops in the middle as well to determine different colors and everything. So you can adjust these controls manually on the screen here. So to determine probably the width, the radius of your gradient, the length, the angle of your gradient in its application. So that is that about gradient colors, about angular gradient. Then diamond. Diamond is like radial, but the thing about diamond is that it is not like too circular. It is kind of, it is like it's like the shape of a diamond. It's just like the shape of diamond. So for your diamond gradient, it is also starting from the middle and extending to the edges right from the middle. The middle is the starting point. And the same application for all other gradient properties also applies to this. Like you can select a particular point between your starting point here and your end point here to add another stop for another color, and you just put in your color and you see, okay, this is nice, oh, this is not nice, oh, this is nice, oh, this is not nice. So right, that is that about that. So I'm not really a very good person with colors, and there are some couple of tools that I use to like match my colors, like see if this particular color will go with this particular color, like colors that help me, like tools that help me generate color palettes. Anyway, so maybe I will drop that one too as well. You might find it useful. So yeah, that's that about gradient and its application. So the only thing we'll not be able to do today is effects. So we'll probably take a look at that. We'll start from there tomorrow. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention is that whenever you are dealing with gradient and gradient colors, you might want to like just have it at the back of your mind that you can just save your color styles. You can just do that by clicking this four dotted square, this icon here, that the row style. Just click on that and click on plus to create a new style. Say my special gradient, my special gradient. Then you create style. The reason being that it makes it easy for you to reuse this particular gradient anytime you want to apply colors. So you can just come here and select your special gradient, you meet it there. So instead of you to like go over the stress of adjusting and creating and modifying these gradient values and all every time you want to apply gradient to a particular object, you can just come and select your special gradient as the tool, as the field for this what's it called. Just come here and I will select my special gradient. So let me move this button a little bit. You see that it has been applied. Yeah, it has been applied. But let me just apply it to this. Oh, sorry, that's not really a button though. It's looking more like a banner than a button. So yeah, just do my special gradients. You see, I don't have to go through the stress of creating my gradient styles from scratch. So in a way for you to create reusable gradient, let me put it that way, reusable gradients across your designs is by saving them as styles. So that is that about that. I don't know if there's any question of the day. Any question before we drop the curtain, before we round it up? Hello.
Yeah. Thank you so much for today. My question is, can you please give us assignment?
Yeah, I'm still going to do that, but I want to cover some couple of concepts before I give you assignment so that it will not be as if I will give you something that is not in any way related to, like, that is not related to the things that we've discussed. So I'm still going to give you something probably after I've covered something on effect. Okay, I said I would do effect. Then we look at the alignment and distribution. Then maybe after that, we'll take a look at one or two tests. So I just want to cover some couple of basic concepts before I give you assessments, so that I will not just go and drop an assessment and it will be as if I'm giving you questions from a concept that we've not even discussed.
Okay.
Thank you for today, sir.
For today, sir.
Please, I have a question.
Please, I have a question.
I wanted to download the app on my laptop,
Okay.
so I'm unable to download it so that I can use it without internet. How can I do that?
What was the error you get when you were trying to download it?
Um, After downloading it, I tried to open it, but it seems the application is not working well, so I have to delete it.
It was not opening at all, or what?
Not opening at all.
Okay, I think you might probably have to check your taskbar to see maybe there are reasons why it was not open, because I don't think there's any reason why it should not be open. And it is pretty straightforward. I don't think it is actually like complicated as other applications like Adobe XD or Sketch or any other apps out there. But I don't know, if you are unable to like download it on your machine, I think the only alternative that is left is for you to probably use it on the browser, and that one will probably be with you using internet. So if you are considering the cost of probably buying data and everything, you might probably resort to using midnight bundles for that.
Okay,
Good evening.
thank you.
So I have
Thank
a
you.
question.
One more question.
One more
Please,
question.
under
Please,
that
under
test,
that test,
Yep.
status, I really don't understand. And I'm coming. Oh God, please, I'm coming. I've forgotten what I want. Okay, under that test, the difference between typing the text um outside the object, whatever I want to design.
Okay, like how do you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, are you saying the difference between doing something like this and doing something like this? Let me just change this one to, I don't know. Is that correct? Hello, Adesami. Hello.
Uh,
Uh,
while we're waiting for her, can I ask my own question?
all right,
all
please
right,
fire
please
up.
fire.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good
Please,
evening.
I don't know when you were taking this the whatever. Like I stood up, so I don't really know how you got to this side.
Okay.
Okay.
You might
You
probably
might
have to
probably
go
have
over
to
this
go over this
the
the
recording of
recording of this
this session,
session
because
because
I have to leave
I have
here
to
in
leave
eight
here in
minutes
eight
time.
minutes time.
But
But
anyways,
anyways, for you to like
go to your
go to your
gradient,
gradients,
let me pick a
let me pick a
particular
particular
frame in
frame
which I've not
which I've
applied
not
there.
applied there.
Okay.
Say you have
So
your
you have your
shape or
shape
your
or your
whatever it is
whatever
that
it is
you are
that
dealing
you are
with.
dealing with.
So this is your
This is your
rectangle,
rectangle.
Actually
and
hearing
you want to
something.
apply color. This fill
This fill
section,
section,
this is where you come
this is where you
to.
come
You
to.
click this
Click this
color,
color,
this
click this
color,
Sorry,
color. Sorry,
I'm hearing echo from your end.
then at the
then
top
at the
here,
top here,
this solid
this
that you're
solid
looking
that
at,
you're
it is
looking
not
here,
diamond,
it's
it's
not
only
diamond, it's
rectangle.
only
The
rectangle.
rectangle, sorry, please, mute your mic.
Mute your mic.
Your mic.
So when you come to
When you
this
come to this
drawing,
drawing,
you will see the linear gradient, radial gradient, angular gradient, diamond gradient, depending on the one that you want to use. So if you want to go to linear, you select it. You select the first color, select the colors you want. Second color, select the ending, the where you want the colors to end or where you are transitioning to. So then your transparency is what you have at the slider below here. Then if you want any other colors in the middle, you can just click on any point and select the colors you want in that particular point. So that's just that about that.
Okay, please. So just one more question. So
All
after
right.
doing this thing, can I export it out of this place as a to another
Yes,
package?
yes,
yes, you
yes,
can.
you
You
can,
can.
you can.
Take for
Take for
example this
example,
my
this my
diamond gradient
diamond
here.
gradient here.
All I have to
Okay,
do
All
is
I have
just
to do is
select
just
it,
select it,
okay,
scroll down on this
scroll
design
down on
tab.
this
You have
design
this
tab, you have
export
this export
options here.
options
So
here.
just click
So
on
just
that
click on
one.
that
You will see
one,
more
you see
options
more
here.
options here.
If you want a
okay,
If you
preview,
want a
just click on
preview,
this
just click on
preview.
this
You see
preview, you
how it.
see how it.
And the
okay,
beautiful
And the
thing
beautiful
about this
thing
thing is
about
that they
this
are
thing is that they are
vector. These
vector,
shapes,
these shapes,
they are
they
vector
are vector
drawings, so they are
drawings, so they are
lossless
lossless.
okay,
compared to like
Compared to
PNG
like
that like
PNG
if you
that are like
import
if you
PNG
import PNG
resolution, it
resolution,
loses
it loses
quality.
quality.
okay,
So,
So,
import it into any probably as
probably
PG,
as
PNG,
PNG.
JPG, SVG, or anything you want. So, and you click on export here, and you'll be able to select the folder where you are saving it, etc., etc. So, and let me just save this one. Go to save, open my pictures, and you see the name in which you, this is it. So, yeah, that's that about that.
That.
All right. I don't think I will actually be able to entertain any more
I
questions
don't
again
think I
because I
will
have to
actually
go
be able
now.
to
I have another
entertain any more
engagement at
questions
9 p.m. So, but if there's any other question that you guys have, you might probably like
You
want
might
to pen
probably
it
like want to
down
put it
and
down
you table
and
it tomorrow.
table it tomorrow.
The way it is now, maybe the video. I hope today's video, this thing will be available. So after watching is better. Maybe it's after watching, after looking at it. So if there's any other question, we can ask you direct, right?
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
no problem.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
All right, guys,
All
bye
right,
for
guys.
now.
Bye for now.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye everyone.
Mine.